Texas A&M led the SEC in sacks a season ago. Can they do it again this year?
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in to Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Those of you, like me, might have woken up happy this morning because the Aggies took down the Texas Longhorns on the baseball field. Yes, we will talk about that here a little bit later in segment 3. I know a lot of y'all will be excited to talk about a little bit of baseball. Big win over Texas, huge one. We'll get to that here in a bit. But first, I want to talk a little bit about how much pressure Texas A&M is going to get this year on the quarterback. So, a year ago, it was so funny the way this season went because, early in the year, we were talking about when Texas A&M was kind of going through their non-conference games. We were talking about, come on, can we get some pressure on the quarterback? What is going on? In the games against lesser opponents, it seemed like the quarterback was just getting the ball out of his hands so quick that there was nothing you can do to really get pressure. And then against Miami, it seems like, last year's DC coach, DJ Durkin, was not sending anybody, and it made no sense. So the season got started hey, can we get some sacks? Maybe, come on, what are we doing? And then after that, it was an explosion of sacks every single game. The Aggies in the season, of course, with 42 total sacks, which was good for number 1 in the SEC and number 6 in all of college football. Now, you weren't crazy far ahead in the SEC. Tennessee was right behind you with 41, but you still led the SEC in sacks. So the question is, can you do that again? Can you repeat as the team sack leader in the SEC again? And, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to do that. And sorry about the lighting, folks. I will be home for a fact tomorrow morning. So this will be done tomorrow morning. So I appreciate y'all bearing with me here. It's been a crazy couple of days. But, I'm really happy with the players Texas A&M brought in Nick Scorton and then Cassius Howell, the two, edge rushers, defensive ends. I just think you're going to see them have so much success this season, especially Nick Scorton. Now, y'all know how excited I am about Nick Scorton. I do think he's a guy. Can he have double-digit sacks? That he did in the Big Ten. And, the Big Ten, I think, physicality-wise, is just about, as close as you can get to the SEC. So, here's the deal. If you time traveled and told me, Andrew, Nick Scorton has had 10 sacks this year, has 11 sacks this year, I wouldn't be surprised. Not one bit. I wouldn't be like, no way. I wouldn't be shocked by that. But I still think that's tough to do in the SEC. It just is. I think 8 is a number I'd feel really comfortable saying. I feel comfortable saying he gets 8 sacks. And then I think Howell, I think he's going to be a reserve, but I love his tape when it comes to pass rushing. He has great moves. He has a wide variety of moves. I think he's going to translate size, quickness-wise, pretty quickly to the conference. So I think he could have 6 sacks. So if you get 8 from Scorton, 6, and then you can get a couple from more of the interior, I mean, you got the Shamars, you got DJ Hicks. I'm excited about. You got some of these other edge rushers, some of the young guys. I mean, even that could come give you some of the 2022 young guys that could give you some sacks this year. And then the really young guys, the freshmen, Kendall Jackson, Solomon Williams, Dale Evans. I don't know how much you're going to get from them. I think Texas A&M's defensive line is still stacked. I don't know if it's last year's stacked. And last year's defensive line was insane. I don't think this year's is going to be quite there, but I don't think it's far off. And then, once again, you can also get sacks. Don't just have to come from the guys in the very front. You can get a lot of sacks from linebackers. I mean, Coop was great. How many sacks did Coop have last year? He had I think he had, let's see how many sacks Coop had. I think he had around, I'll tell you right now. He had, it's not going to load. 8 sacks. That's what I was going to say. I thought he had 8. I mean, can York give you a bunch of sacks? Can whoever the other linebacker is going to be, whether it's one of the transfers, can they give you a couple sacks? What can you get from your secondary? What can you get from your corners? You got to get a couple there. You got to get a few from all levels, 10 sacks from your secondary, 10 from your linebackers, maybe 15 from your linebackers, 16, 17, 18, 19, something from your defensive line. That's how you get back to this number of, more than 40 sacks. And I think it's just tough. It's because I think there's also a chance that Texas A&M could have 40 sacks, but then just 40 sacks translate to the number one. Is that number one in the SEC again this year? You never know. Maybe a team gets 49 this year and Texas A&M gets 41 and they're second best in the SEC. That stuff can happen. But I do not think this 2024 roster is going to have any kind of trouble getting pressure on the quarterback. I'm really not worried about that. I think Texas A&M is going to be able to get pressure. I think that they're going to live in the opposing team's backfield. So, it's a tough game to play more or less than last year because I think there's so many different variables that play into that. But I do think it's still possible to have more than last year, and I think it's possible to lead the SEC. It's also possible that more than last year doesn't lead the SEC, or less than last year does lead the SEC. There's lots of different things that could happen this year. But I'm really high on Nick Scorton. I think if Nick Scorton can give you 10 sacks, which I don't think is out of their own possibility, I think Texas A&M gets 40 sacks. If you get that from one of your guys up front, York can give you 7, 6, 7, 8 sacks. The other linebacker gives you, you get 8 sacks, 10 sacks from the secondary, something maybe, whatever. I do think this is a realistic number to get to when it comes to getting pressure for Texas A&M. I think you're going to see a lot of sacks from transfer players, a lot of sacks from guys on the roster last year. I think you're going to see a lot from Howell and Scorton. I think maybe Rodash Johnson gets you some. He's an interesting player because he can play all over the defensive line. He's not going to give you more than 2, but you never know. So point here is I think you're going to have a bunch of sacks this year. Is it more or less than last season? I think it's going to be about even. I think it's going to be right there. I think you're going to see it be right at 42, whether it's 40, whether it's 43. I think it's going to be in that 38 to 44 range. They'll be in there. I think that's my range. But I can tell you it's going to be whatever that number is going to be near the top in the SEC and near the top in college football. So I feel pretty confident saying that Texas A&M will once again have a good defensive line, have a good front seven, and will get a ton of pressure on opposing quarterbacks, making their lives not very fun. So SEC Power Rankings came out, and we're going to talk a little bit about where the Aggies are, where some of their opponents are, and Too high, too low? How do we feel about this? We will have that conversation coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Game Time. Game Time is the best place to go get all of your last-minute tickets. There's no better option to get tickets. I will never buy a ticket from anywhere other than Game Time for the rest of my life. It's just truly the easiest app to use, and they're in the business of saving you money. Some of these other places, they want your money. They don't care about the joys events bring you. They care about your money. Game Time is in the business of saving people money, and that is what I love so much about their service. I also love how easy and convenient their app is. My favorite feature is how you can see what your seat looks like, where you're going to be, what's it going to look like compared to the court, the field, the rink, the stage, whatever it is. So I love that feature. You have got to go check out the Game Time app. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, the lowest prices, guaranteed. So an SEC power rankings list came out, and it had the Aggies ranked 9th. This is pretty fair. I think this is about where I would have expected Texas A&M to be ranked. I don't think this is too low. I don't think this is too high. The teams above you are Oklahoma at 8, LSU at 7, Tennessee at 6, Missouri at 5, Ole Miss at 4, Alabama at 3, Texas at 2, and then Georgia at 1. So what I like about this is that on your schedule, your SEC schedule, you only play 3 teams above you, and that would be Texas, Missouri, and LSU. And then, 5 of these opponents are lower than you. So what that means is, according to this, Texas A&M should go 5-3. And the 3 teams that are ahead of you, all of those games are at home. So, what they said about these rankings, they gave an reasoning on offense, reasoning on defense. So their reasoning on offense was Coach Colin Klein and Connor Wigman. They love Connor Wigman. They think him and Coach Klein are going to have a really good, they're going to be a good 1-2 punch. Klein's going to do a great job calling plays. Wigman's going to execute them. And, I just think the preseason love of Coach Colin Klein continues to just go around. I mean, people are really high on Coach Klein. I've been on that train for months now. I think he was the best hire of the offseason. I think what he's going to do here at Texas is be really special. I think he's going to take this offense to another level. Jimbo's offense didn't work for a while. And then you bring in Petrino, and I don't think it was really Petrino. I don't think that was him. I don't think that was his system. I think Jimbo, that was the offseason topic last year. Is Jimbo going to have his hands on the playbook, or is it going to be all Bobby Petrino? What's this going to look like? I think we saw too much Jimbo, not enough Bobby Petrino last year. And then things looked better when it was more, we know it had to be Bobby Petrino. So I think that this, I just feel really good about Coach Klein and Connor Wigman. I think that they are going to be really a dominant force in this conference. I think that Coach Klein can help develop Connor Wigman. We know Coach Klein knows a lot about the quarterback position and what it takes to be a solid quarterback. We know that. So I think he can help Connor Wigman. I think he can help develop him into the special player that I believe he can be. Y'all know how high I am on Connor Wigman. I think he can be an absolute star. I think he can be a top 5, top 3 quarterback in this conference this season. You still got to get back, get healthy, get right. But, Coach Klein is going to do that. I think Coach Klein is going to have him in a really good position heading into the season. I think he's just going to be feeling good. I think he's going to feel a lot more confident in this offense and what he's running. I'm stoked about that. So on the defensive side of things, what Athlon loved to have Texas A&M ranked 9th was, or what they said was there's a lot to replace. They talked about McKinley Jackson. They talked about Fadil Diggs. Talked about Walter Nolan. We just got done talking about sacks. Those guys were, a part of your sacks season to go. You lose 2 of them to the portal, one of them moving on to the next level. I'm not as concerned about the defensive line turnover as they seem to be. I mean, it's funny. That's kind of what we just got done basically talking about was I think you did a great job bringing in guys that should succeed right now. I don't think should have much issue, developing into a more significant role. I think that Nick Scorton is going to be great. I think that Nick Scorton, I forget the number of how many sacks Fadil Diggs, McKinley Jackson, and Walter Nolan had, but I think there's a chance that I'm pretty sure it was around 10, if I'm right. I'd have to look at it. But I have confidence that I think that Nick Scorton himself can have that many sacks. So, I mean, let's play that game. Let's see how many total sacks those 3 guys had. Can Nick Scorton have as many sacks as those guys? I don't think that would be the craziest. All right, here we go. Season to go. You got 4 sacks from Fadil Diggs, 4 sacks from Walter Nolan. So 8. Where's McKinley Jackson? 3 sacks from McKinley Jackson. So that's 11. So I think, I don't know if he'll have 11, but I'll tell you this: if he's going to be right there with those guys. So my point here is, yeah, you're losing some guys who played a lot of snaps, good football players, all 3 of those names, but also you're bringing in one guy who I think could almost replace their sack production. So I'm not saying that's a terrible reason to have. Yes, there's a lot to replace defensive line wise, but I don't think Texas A&M is going to struggle to do it. And but yeah, so when it comes to these rankings, I think it's great. You only have 3 teams that you play higher than you. All those games are at home. So I think, it's great to see Texas A&M kind of ranked fairly in the conference and all that. And I think that they're going to be a little bit higher than 9 when the season ends. I think they could be like 6, if they go 8-4. If they go 8-4 or potentially 9-3, you're going to see them at that 6-5-4 area. But 9 is fair right now, because of all the coach turnover, everything Texas A&M lost in the portal. That's a fair place to have the Aggies. But I think that this, more than anything, is a testament to how, and I keep using the word easy, and I think I'm wanting to use the word easy when I refer to Texas A&M's 2024 football schedule. And I don't think that's the correct word because it is still an SEC schedule. While you get to play Texas and LSU and Missouri at home, they're still good football teams. You have to go to Florida. You have to go to Auburn. This is not the easiest schedule in the world. It's not. But it's easier than some other SEC teams and some other opponents were dealt. So you definitely could have gotten it a lot worse. And I think this list right here, it shows just how true that is. This is why, if Texas A&M had Florida's schedule, we'd be talking the ceiling 7 wins. I mean, maybe 8 because I think Texas A&M is in a better spot roster-wise. But that's the ceiling. Now we're talking the ceiling is probably 10. The floor is probably 7. 7 to 10 range. I mean, if you had Florida's schedule, we'd be talking a ceiling the floor of like 4 wins to 8. That's the difference in schedule. So, Texas A&M is lucky to have the schedule they do this year in the first year under Coach Elko. I think that's great. And I'm really excited to see how well they perform with this schedule. So I think that's fair ranking. I think 9 is a fair spot to have them. I like their reasoning on both sides of the ball. It makes sense. And I think 9's fair. Now it is the time I'm sure y'all have all been waiting for. We are going to talk about the Aggies win over Texas on the Diamond yesterday. We will have that conversation coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and a ton more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always have exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. So Texas A&M takes down Texas 9-2 to move to 12-0 on the season. You know, really never felt like much of a baseball game. Well, I guess it was somewhat tight through a few innings. And then Texas A&M was able to stretch out the lead. I thought the pitching staff was great. I mean, you give up 1 earned run. Sato, 6 Ks. Aschenbeck, 3.2 innings, only 1 earned run. You'll take that all day long. 6 walks. Would like to see that come down a little bit. You'll know me. I think keep that to 4 or less, and I can live with it. But didn't hurt you here. And Texas A&M has done a great job working through traffic all season. I don't think this staff is too concerned about a couple of base runners, which, yes, I mean, base runners are stressful. That's part of it. But I think this staff so far this season, I mean, now you're 12-0, so it's hard to say you have it, but I think they've done a great job working through traffic. I think that's a huge thing. Being able to pitch in high pressure situations is a big deal. If you are kind of shaken when there's a couple guys on base, you're going to struggle to pitch in big moments, maybe in Omaha, maybe in a big SEC series on the road. You got to be able to lock in when you're down or when you got a couple runners on base. So I think this staff's done a great job of that, and that's great to see. So you've got, so 12 total staff strikeouts in this game. You'll take that. You out-hit Texas 10-6. 2 long balls. Braden Montgomery cannot and will not be stopped. Jackson Appel goes deep as well, and then had the bat flip of the century. You know, we talked about it a little bit yesterday, but not – I think Texas A&M did a good job of not doing too much. I think they did just, for a rivalry game, I think they did just the right amount. Don't do too much. I think I'm a big let your play talk guy. I know some might not be, but I think Texas A&M, for the most part, I was pretty happy with how they handled that. Because hey, you're the better baseball team. Act like it. Don't you are the better baseball team. There's no need to try and show somebody up any other way. Show them up, beat their behind, and that's what Texas A&M did. So, 2 long balls. Montgomery 2 for 3 in this game, a home run, 2 walks, 2 RBIs. Jackson Appel 3 for 5 with a home run. When you're getting that kind of production from your backstop, you are in a really good spot. When you're getting 3 for 5, a homer, you'll take that all day long. Hayden gives you 2 hits, 3 RBIs. Take that all day long. And why is that? It's because people ahead of them are getting on base. Absolutely love that. I mean, Texas A&M played a really good game. The bats were hot. The pitching staff was incredible. I mean, when you put those 2 things together, it's hard to lose baseball games. When you are pitching it and swinging it, you are not going to lose a lot of baseball games. That's just the reality here. And Texas A&M all season long has been pitching it and hitting it. And then they've had a couple games. I forget which series it was. Maybe it was the Wagner series, but where they didn't put a ton of runs up on the board. But what do? Your pitching staff puts up a goose egg. I mean, that's what makes this team so great. Is I think that you have to have, great offense and not a great pitching staff, or a great pitching staff and not much offense makes it really hard to win games. You got to be able to swing it. You got to be able to pitch it. And this Texas A&M team can do that. And that is why they are a legit candidate to win the national championship. That's how good this baseball team is. This is not maybe they'll make it to Omaha. This is a team that could win a national championship. Got another game coming up tonight, a series this weekend. So lots of baseball to be played. You're not going to go undefeated. You're going to lose the game eventually. It's going to come sometime. But, hey, it wasn't to Texas. And that is all that matters. Huge win. Take down your rival. Love that. Love to see that. Team played great. Pitching was great. Hitting was great. You got to be excited about this baseball team. I know that I am. That is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. I really appreciate you being here every single day in the off season, football wise. So, if you got anything, any conversations, any things we should bring up on the show, let me know in the comments. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It helps the show a ton. Really appreciate y'all being here every single day. Like I said, hope everybody has a great rest of their day today, and we will see you tomorrow.